Namaste everyone and welcome to another session on Yoga Vidya. Today I'm going to take you through whatever research I have done on Devalayam or temples. So I have split this into three sections. At the end of the first section, I will just ask a question. If there is any questions or if there are any comments, you all can give your comments. And if there is nothing, then I will go to the next section. So let's start the whole thing with the concept of God. In the Abrahamic faiths, which is like Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the basic opposite is that God is a creator and controller of destiny of the earth and everything, all creation. And in return, the individual is expected to keep faith in God and follow whatever rules God has given to him as the correct way to live life. Our dharma system is not the same. It is different. It is not a faith-based system. And it requires that every assumption should be proven by pramana or rules of evidence. And the biggest and the most important of all these pramanas is pratyaksha. That means personal experience. Nothing can replace personal experience. And that is the base on which dharma functions. The foundation of the system is that all creation emerges from the cognitive experience of the state of null or void. This is the Brahman. That means everything comes from nothing. By that logic, the concept of God that exists in Abrahamic faiths is something, because you cannot get anything out of nothing. It can only come from something. But something has to come from nothing. So even the concept of God is an evolution of nothing. Therefore, Brahman is not a hypothetical entity like God, but a cognitive experience, which is why I keep saying that we have to experience. It is Anubhava. The experience of Brahman is a reality. It is not a concept. And also, there is no one way to get to the truth or the Brahman. You can use any path you want to reach the final destination. So, since there is no God and there is no rules, because religion is one which has a dogma, a set of rules, and which the adherent has to follow. So, since Dharma has no such thing, actually, Dharma is agnostic as well as atheist, because there is no concept of God by itself. So, Dharma and Abrahamic system are fundamentally different and cannot be compared. This is the most important thing. We should not try to compare Dharma with Abrahamic systems. What is a Devalayam or a temple? A Devalayam is a manifestation of the Brahman. It is a Purusha. It is a living identity. We know that the Purusha is an identity that drives the natural state of all sentient or jiva and insentient or jadam entities. So the Devalayam is a living entity. It is not a place of prayer like a church, mosque, or synagogue. This is a very important distinction. You don't go to a temple to pray alone. You go to a temple to be aware of the cognitive state of change that is occurring within you. So the Devalayam is a living organism with its own kshetra or field of activity, and the awareness of that identity or the Purusha, which is a kshetrajna. So everything that we do in a temple is about awareness. A Devalayam can be of different kinds and it can mean different things to different people. For example, in a temple, suppose everybody is congregating at a temple, it is for a particular reason that they congregate, maybe an utsava or something like that. At that time, it becomes a grama deva. If it is for a family will go to a temple together. If it is a temple which many generations of people have visited, it is called a Kuladeva, the clan deity. Or it can be a personal deity, something that you like yourself, and that is called an Ishtadeva. Now, it is also possible that the Ishtadeva, like for instance, even though you might have something like Ganapati for your Ishtadeva, somebody might say that for me, this particular Ganapati is my Ishtadeva. Or Hanuman is my Ishtadeva. And Hanuman of a particular Veera Hanuman might be your Ishtadeva. So even there, the personal deity can be a very small subsect of the overall system that you have. At an individual level, the Devalayam reflects the identity of the worshipper. That is why the deity is called Pratibha, because it reflects the identity. You go there with something, the deity will reflect that back to you and allow you to process whatever you have wanted to do, which is called sankalpa, and you go there to the deity, and then that sankalpa is reflected back as feedback. And there you start processing that information or that requirement in order to find a solution to the change that you're experiencing, which is why the deity is called Vigraha. Graha is the Sanskrit cognate of the English word grab. So, Navagraha, 9 grabbers, Vigraha, Anugraha, all of this are based on that word graha or grab. The Vigraha is one that grabs you. And it grabs you in the sense that it connects you to it and allows you to relate to that particular deity which you consider is important for you, either as a Grama Deva, a Kula Deva, or a Ishta Deva. So when you go to a temple or a Devalayam, you clean your sense of identity, your asmita, in such a manner that you are empty inside, and then you start relating to the deity who is inside the temple.
Sir, this Devalayam you said is the reflection of Purusha. When you talk about cognitive part of it, does it mean energy part or is it emotion?
Consciousness. So whether it is energy, whether it is emotion, whether it is physical presence, you are physically going there, no? So when you physically go there, you're also breathing.
Yes.
So your body, your annamaya kosha, your pranamaya kosha, your manomaya kosha, your vijnanamaya kosha, your awareness of your environment, your jnana as well as your vijnana, all of this is going as a package into the temple, correct? You're a bundle, you're a summation of many things. Am I correct?
Correct. The 5 questions.
You go there in a particular state of existence into the temple. You go inside a temple to come out with a better state of existence. Am I correct?
Yes.
So if you're going into the temple for a better state of existence, it means that there is a change in state, in a change in experience that you have. Am I correct?
Yes.
And that is basically what we are trying to do. How is that driven? That is driven primarily by 2 things. One is your own awareness of the self, of who you are. When you go inside a temple, your awareness of the self is acute, because you're going there as an empty container, or maybe you're going there with a lot of turbulence within yourself because you're unhappy, you have a problem. You go inside, you dump all that, you purge yourself to the deity out there, and when you come out, 90% or 99% of the time, you come out in a state of peace. Your problems may not be solved. How did that happen? Because of the cognitive state of change that has occurred within the temple. Am I correct?
Perfect.
So this is basically what it is. It is cognitive. It is an anubhava. It is an experience. Now, your experience in a temple cannot be replicated by me. It is yours alone. It is pratyaksha.
So does it mean that if I go with probably a set of A values, then I go into the temple, then I come back with A plus?
Necessarily. The vessel has not changed. No, your vessel is the same. What you have done is basically clean the vessel and dump the kachada inside and come out, right?
Okay.
Sometimes you would have also come out with a solution. And it is also possible that the deity has supported you with a solution. For us, the deity is a living entity. Because it is a living entity, it has the ability to project its own consciousness on you. How many times have we experienced a particular state of change inside a temple? You go with a problem and suddenly a solution will come. Now, it is possible that the solution came from within. It's also possible that the deity provided the solution. There is no evidence. Unfortunately, there is no evidence, and we don't have the awareness of the prajna to be able to relate to a particular deity on a personal level, because we have these filters between us and the deity. Correct?
Yes, sir.
So actually, you don't change materially. What changes is the cognitive state. The experience changes your cognitive state, and if you're able to retain it, then you are at a greater state of peace for a longer period of time.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
So I'm going to now talk about the design basis of a temple. There are primarily 2 types of temples. One is in the north of the country and one is in the south. One is called the Nagara type of temple, which is generally found in the North Indian states. But there also, the Nagara state has got an enormous number of variations. Now, the one on the top left is the RK Mutt in Kolkata. And this one is a typical Bengali style of Nagara. If you will see the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya, which is more or less what it looks like in the bottom left photograph, you will realize that the Shikhara or the highest spire, the Vimana below which is the Garbhagriha. Similarly, if you will see the RK Mutt, the one below the tallest Vimana is the Garbhagriha. Now, if you go to Odisha, the Jagannath Puri, there will be small variation of this particular style. The Ahom or the Assam styles, you go to Kamakhya. Kamakhya is very different. It is a huge dome-shaped temple where they have taken the same Nagara style and modified it. Now it's almost like an Ahom style. South of the Vindhyas, the Dravida styles have this kind of a Gopuram. The one on the right is Parani. Then we have got RK Mutt, and this is generally a photograph I've taken out of the internet. What is the concept of the temple itself? So the center of the temple is the Brahman. That is the Garbhagriha. You can see I have marked it as a Garbhagriha. The Garbhagriha is an enclosed space where there is no movement. It has got a single aperture through which somebody can enter and come out. The Garbhagriha generally is always moist, like the womb or the uterus. Now, what happens is that the Garbhagriha by itself is supposed to represent Kumbhaka. And in yoga, we have discussed these before. There is a state called Kevala Kumbhaka, that is only Kumbhaka. Now, that is very difficult to reach. Yet, when you are in a state of Kevala Kumbhaka, the consciousness or the chitta does not move. When the chitta does not move, then you are in a state of merger with the Brahman. And this state of merger with the Brahman has been replicated in the Garbhagriha. That is, it is in a state of Kevala Kumbhaka. Within that particular Garbhagriha, the cognitive element is in a state of null. From there, in the center of the Garbhagriha, you have the Mula Vigraha. Now, Mula Vigraha is also called the Saguna Brahmana. Now, the Saguna Brahmana is the material aspect of creation. From the Garbhagriha, there will be a small aperture and you come to what is called the Ardha Mandapa. The Ardha Mandapa is an intermediary stage between the Garbhagriha and the viewing area or the Mahamandapa. This Mahamandapa is where people come to view the deity. And then you have what is called the Dvajastamba on the outside. The Dvajastamba has got multiple meanings, but we for now we will just look at the physical aspect. After the Dvajastamba is the Balipeedam, and you have the Gopuram or the exit and the entrance. This is essentially like a human being. The Vigraha represents the Agnya Chakra, while the Garbhagriha represents the Sahasrara. The Vishuddhi is the Ardha Mandapa. The Anahata is the Mahamandapa. As you move around, this is the Manipura, because this is where the movement of the prana happens mostly. All of us are moving here. This is why it is the Manipura area. This is the Swadhisthana, and then you have the Mooladhara. So the whole temple is considered to be a Purusha, just like a human being. Now the design of this is as per Vastu Purusha Mandala. Now this is the 9 by this particular diagram. The center is the Brahman. On the eastern side is Aditya or Surya. The western side you have Varuna. On this side you have Yama. Then north side you have Kuber. You can southwest is the Pitrus. Northeast you have Savita. And from there you have Agni. So you can see that this whole thing is designed in such a way, it has certain significance of where what is. Because if you will see, Surya is to the east and just below Surya is Savita. Savita is the energy or the capacity of the sun. Similarly, if you go within the temple, the Devalayam itself, you will have the Agrashala, the Yagashala, the well on the southeastern side, the Sapta Matrika, then the Ganapati, Vishnu to the west, Sayanalaya, this is where the Lord is put to sleep. Kshetrapalaka. Kshetrapalaka is the deity which is the location manager of this whole temple. The basic design of the Devalayam is like that of an individual. like a person. There is a Sukshma Lingam, which is the Brahman, and the Stula Lingam. Stula Lingam is everything that we see, the material aspects. And this entire thing is designed in such a way to replicate the human body, or not just the human body, any living organism, which will have the Mooladhara, the Swadhisthana, the Manipura, the Anahata, the Vishuddhi, and the Agnya Chakra. So that is the Stula part. This is the normal design of a Devalayam. This is a representative aspect of a Garbhagriha. This inside is the Garbhagriha, and you can see it is an isolated point. They continuously wet the idol, and there is always a lamp, because of which the whole area is moist. It is always moist and it is always still. It is always in a state of kumbhaka, and that is the Garbhagriha, the womb where creation occurs. The Vigraha is inside, and this is the Saguna Brahmana, the Brahmana with gunas. So, what it means is that this Devata has got gunas, and it reflects its own gunas on the person who comes, the worshipper or the pujak. When here you have the Ardha Mandapa, and this is the Mahamandapa. Some of the critical parts of the Devalayam are the Mahamandapa. Is from the Mahamandapa, you have the person coming out. This is the Prahara, and then the person will go around. These are called Koshta Vigrahas. Koshta Vigrahas are Vigrahas which are on the sides, and very often these Koshta Vigrahas tell you about the life of the deity or the nuances of the deity, so that the pujak or worshipper begins to get a greater assimilation with the deity. This Koshta Vigraha is in a town called Avdiyar Koil in Tamil Nadu. This is probably one of the most beautiful temples in India. The construction, the aesthetics, everything is at a completely different level. So if you all can manage it, please do go there. It is between Karaikudi and Ramanathapuram, and it's closer to the coast. So if you are able to go, please go to this temple. The Garbhagriha, there is a method to the construction. So the Garbhagriha by itself, on the longitudinal axis, we have already explained. This is the longitudinal axis. This is the structure of the Devalayam. Now, what is the vertical? So let us look at this. Any Devalayam has an above ground as well as a below ground structure. Let us start from the bottom. This is Upapita. Upapita is the one above which the Garbhagriha sits. Above the Upapita is the Adhisthana. The Adhisthana is the foundation of the temple. So it will be slightly above the ground. Pada is the wall of the Garbhagriha. Then the Prashtara is the roof of the Garbhagriha. Between here in the center is the Garbhagriha. The Hara is a garland, okay, in the start of the Vimana or Shikhara. Then Griva is the neck, and then you have Shikhara or the head of the Vimana and the Kalasha. This is the construction of the vertical elements of a Shikhara. There is also something that happens below the Vigraha. Below the Vigraha, starting is the Adhara-shila. Adhara-shila is the base, which is here. And above that comes the Nidhi Kumbha, which has a pot made of 5 metals filled with gold and jewels, which represents the Swadhisthana. Then we have a tortoise or a lotus made in stone, a tortoise made out of silver, and then a tortoise made out of gold, representing the Anahata, as Anahata and Vishuddhi. There is a copper funnel. So from the earth, there is a kind of a movement of prana which happens from within. Sitting on that is the Brahmashila, and then the Vigraha. The Moola Vigraha sits here within the Garbhagriha. This is called shad-AdhAdhara-prathishta. So we can see that a temple is the manifestation of an individual in multiple facets, and it has its own identity, because the Saguna Brahmana by itself is very hard to define. So what they have done is to intricately try and establish the identity of the Vigraha as something which has its own identity and which can reflect the identity of the pujak or the worshipper. The ancillary facilities of a temple is the kunda or tirtha, which is an enclosed pond within a temple for Shaucham. The Agrashala or kitchen, it's also called Madapalli, where the Naivedyam and Annadana is prepared. Madapalli have very, very strict Shaucham requirements. You cannot just take whatever food you like into the temple. They have to be made with specific cleanliness requirements. The Yagashala yajnas are done there because you can't do yajnas within the temple. So the Yagashala will be separated from the temple within the temple premises, and this is where the yajna is performed. Shayanalayam, where the deity is taken to sleep every night. This is very unique to Bharat. Our Devalayam, the deity is considered to be an individual, a Purusha. So it is said that the deity will go to sleep at night. And this is where we are very different from every other form of worship. Papa Mandapam is a well from which the water is taken for doing the Abhishekam to the deity. A Goshala is where the cows are kept, and Go Puja is done every morning before the temple is opened, and then the rituals start. The Ratha is a chariot on which the Vigraha is placed and taken for viewing by everybody. And you have a shed where the temple chariot is placed and maintained. Natya Mandapam is the place where dances are arranged. Vadya Mandapam is where musical performances happen. This point here, this is where you have a Natya Mandapam or a Vadya Mandapam. So some temples which are big will have separate Natya Mandapam and Vadya Mandapam or musical area. Upanyasa Mandapam, where you have lectures on philosophy, the culture, Ram Katha and things like that. Alankara Mandapam is where the ornaments of the deity are displayed. Nataraja Mandapam is unique to Shiva temples because Shiva is a dancer. But it must be very clearly understood that the Nataraja Mandapam and the Natya Mandapam are different. The Natya Mandapam is where dance programs are held. But in a Nataraja Mandapam, there are no dance programs. It is only kept there for Shiva. It is assumed that Shiva comes there to dance and nobody else dances there. So while a Natya Mandapam can be a Nataraja Mandapam, a Nataraja Mandapam cannot be a Natya Mandapam. Then the Kshetrapalaka, I've already spoken about. The Kshetrapalaka is the site manager of the whole Purusha, of the Kshetra. What are the types of Vigrahas? There are three types of Vigrahas according to Vastu Shilpi. The first one is called Achalam. Chalam means that which moves. Chala. Chalneka. Achalam means that which does not move, and this is the Mula Vigraha, and you can see this Mula Vigraha here. It does not move. Chalam is the Utsava Vigraha. This Utsava Vigraha is one that is taken around the village or the grama so that everybody gets a viewing. And this is taken around during Utsava or festivals. That you can see here. This is a Shiva temple in Pondicherry, and this is the Utsava Vigraha of the temple. The reason why this is done is multifold. Primarily, during Utsava, the number of people who come into the temple is very high, so it is not possible for the Mula Vigraha to be viewed by everybody. However, if the Utsava Vigraha goes out, the power of the Mula Vigraha is given to the Utsava Vigraha. So the Mula Vigraha ceases to have prana. All the prana from the Mula Vigraha comes to the Utsava Vigraha, and then the Utsava Vigraha is going out as the Mula Vigraha. It is like, when you're sitting at home, you'll be lounging in your sitting room. When you go out, you'll be dressed differently. However, it is the same person. So we must really understand that the same deity is going out. There is only one deity that can take the prajna of the deity. So chalam or achalam, there is only one deity which goes out. This is the nuance which we need to understand. So the Utsava Vigraha goes out of the temple regularly for darshana by people to avoid a rush or a crush of people within the temple premises, and at the same time it allows people around the temple to worship the Lord at their own homes, in the sense that when the Utsava Vigraha comes in front of their building or something like that, they will do Aarti, everybody will come. In the process, what happens is the deity comes into the people without the people having to go to the deity. So there are two parts to this. One is where the deity is static or the Mula Vigraha. The other one is where the deity is dynamic and it moves around without losing its own power. Chalachalam is where the deity is both immobile as well as mobile. And there is only one place that I know of where the deity is both, and this is called Chidambaram, where the deity is in the form of space. And so it is assumed that the deity is everywhere. So Chidambaram, Chit is consciousness, Ambaram is the space. So Chalachalam deity is both, but it is only in Chidambaram that the deity is both. Are there any questions?
Because I have lived in US. When they build in US, I think these concepts many times are not in play, correct? Like one thing is in India, the temples are all on the ground level. Because one of the things you said that how the grounded, that thing you showed, no? Grounding
Correct,
and then
correct,
coming up.
correct.
And then the gold and all that is put. For example, in US, a couple of major temples, I used to live in New Jersey. So they have a temple on the first floor. Will that be okay? Because where is the grounding thing coming for that?
If you will see in small temples, the deity is put on a pedestal, maybe 2-3 feet above the ground. What they do is put the grounding there. Yes, I agree. We have a huge temple in Mumbai also. It is in a place called Chedanagar. The Lord is in the top floor. Generally, what they say is that the temple should be the tallest building in the vicinity, in the grama, because everybody should be able to see the spire of the temple and to be able to worship the temple by just looking at it. Often you see the gopuram of the temple and then you worship the temple without being able to go there because you may not be clean, you're in a hurry, you may be going somewhere. You look at the spire and then you think of the Lord and you worship the Lord or the deity. If you have a very small temple, one of the logics which is used is that you put the temple on a higher floor and you put all these things below. How right and wrong it is $1 million question. Because at the end of the day, it is a Purusha. Now, whether you put it in this form or not, the Purusha will continue to exist. The Purusha is an individual, so it will exist as a different individual. So I'm not too sure whether it materially changes the identity of the deity because the deity will continue to remain what it is. We have to recognize that the deity is a reflection of the individual. It is a pratibha. It is a Saguna Brahmana. Ultimately, it is still a Garbhagraha. Within the Garbhagraha is the manifestation of a deity. That deity gets its unique features based on its own identity, and then it gets a reflection of the identity from the pujak or the worshipper. So, if you put it in a different place, it does not mean that the identity is lost. The identity is a different form of prajna. It's a different sense of awareness. If it is not kept like this, it does not necessarily mean that the deity will stop existing. No.
Yeah.
So it is just it will exist in a different manner. That's all. This is my view.
And just to add up to this, I think even Ayodhya temple is on the similar, like it is also raised and then the idol is kept. And also, if you visit in most of our North Indian temples, it is the same structure because all the old temples are, anyways, they do not exist. So it has been destroyed by the outsiders. So when we see, if you go to Vrindavan, Gokul, Mathura, if you visit, so it is again, it's a raised platform, and then on that there is a small platform on which the idol is there.
Question is there anything below that plinth? It's on the first floor does not mean that there can be somebody who can sit below. In Ayodhya and others, nobody can sit below, right?
Yeah, in US you can sit because there is a hall below the
Exactly.
temple.
There is a hall below and the deity is seated above the person.
Okay.
Whereas in Mathura, in Ayodhya and other places, the whole thing, it's a
Yes,
huge,
the platform, it's a
it is
raised.
a monolith.
Yeah.
Yeah, there won't be anything below. Yeah.
That is the basic difference. Yeah, he is correct. Generally, you don't keep anything below. But unfortunately, sometimes there is a problem of space. So they try to optimize the space and then they have the Lord on top. Question really is in Dharma, the Devalayam, unlike in Abrahamic faith, where it is a unidirectional prayer. That is, you pray to God, what you call God, and really there is no feedback. Whereas in our system, when you pray to the deity is also conferring something to you.
Yeah.
Because the deity exists as a Saguna Brahmana, it has begun to get its own awareness and chitta, consciousness. And that consciousness over time begins to develop as a power. It has its own power.
Yes.
And that power begins to then reflect on you, and then it begins to clean the individual as an individual. So, depending on the consciousness of the individual, the deity begins to confer the same kind of consciousness. to the individual. And therein lies the difference between Abrahamics and our system.
Yeah.
Our system, the deity is a living thing. It is a Purusha. Whereas there is no such thing. You just pray to something called a God, which you don't know, you understand. That's why it's called a faith. You have to believe that that God exists.
Yeah.
There is no evidence. You don't really look for evidence. Our dharma is not a faith. You have to experience it. You have to have that pramana. You have to have a proof that something like this exists. So we don't have anything called faith and things like that.
Yeah.
Just wanted to share my thoughts on our discussion point about temples in US, because in US naturally it is started coming up much later. Temples, people built it in places which were available. Sometimes some churches were converted into temples. Some places we were told some abandoned churches are also converted into temples, buildings, abandoned buildings. So I think the difference is in India, if you notice, all these temples, they are made of stones and limestone and those kind of strong material. So the idea behind it is probably also that it should stand the test of time. We have had civilizations come and go, earthquakes and whatnot, but the temple has continued to remain intact. One is that. Second things are these idols get their chaitanyam from the puja that is being offered, the shlokas that are chanted. That's why they say in some temples, why do we say it's a very powerful temple? Now the Kamakhya Devi temple, there is no idol, but it's a yoni shaped area, which is the main deity where there is no goddess idol, but there is water there. What brings that space, that kind of power, is one, of course, the mantras that are chanted, our Vedic mantras which are chanted. So that's what gives that idol that power. I think that it is the way a puja is conducted that gives more power to that place, sanctity to that place. That is something we even get in homes, in some houses. When we go to our puja room, may not be a fancy room, but you step into that home, that puja room, you get a feeling, a slightly
There's a
sensitive
power.
person. Yeah, little bit of sensitivity is enough to recognize that in a home. So what brings that, even if maybe big major temples, they are following all that. Even this thought crossed my mind, what about the small temples we see in our colonies,
The home temples also.
our own home temples? We don't follow much of this. We just put whatever photos and vigrahas we like, isn't it? But why that chaitanyam comes, I think it is, though you mentioned that we don't have the faith part, somewhere there I am again having a disconnect, sir. I think faith is what is driving force.
You can call it what you like, it doesn't matter.
Yes, sir.
Like I said, unlike Abrahamic faiths, this is a conversation that you have with your Ishta Deva. So let's start with the basics. The Deva has got, as you rightly said, a chaitanyam. It starts with the Deva's Annamaya Kosha. That is, if Ganapati has a trunk to the right, it means something. If Ganapati has a trunk to the left, it means something else. If Ganapati has a trunk straight down, it means something else. We have got Veda Purusha, that is, you have Hanuman, you have Ganapati, you have Hayagriva, you have Narasimha. These are half man, half animal. They are far more aggressive. Now, Vishnu in certain places is in Sayana state. Like, for instance, on the Kaveri, you come to Srirangapatna, wherever river breaks up and then it merges again. It's a yoni form. And there you have Sriranganatha in Shayana state. Somewhere in middle, he is also in Shayana state, and then last he is in Srirangam, he is in Sayana state. All of these, the Kaveri separates and merges again and forms an island, and this is where Vishnu is. Vishnu, by virtue of being sattvic and the person who's responsible for maintaining harmony in the universe, is in Shayana state. Then that power gets amplified, what you call chaitanyam, gets amplified by the various mantras and the rituals. He is treated like an individual. He and Devi will go to sleep at night. They are woken up in the morning with a go puja. Point is, you treat that deity as an individual. So what happens is, each of these deities has a physical construct which gives that deity a certain kind of chaitanyam. Then the pujas are done in a particular manner and there is a chaitanyam. Now, very often you will not even know that you are going to a particular temple in a particular manner. Suppose you don't go and you stop going. there will be a feedback. People have said that this feedback comes to them and they are forced to go back to the temple. So I'm not sure it can be called a faith. For me, it is a cognitive capture, if you want to call it that. The individual's chaitanyam and the chaitanyam of the deity, which begins to then resonate with each other. A yoga is created, a yoking between the vigraha and the individual is created, and that is what bhakti yoga is. The person then begins to slowly surrender or remove the filters that exist. After all, you are going as an individual, you are treating the deity as an individual. You have a difference between yourself and the deity. The chaitanyam of the deity, sometimes you are able to experience it, sometimes you cannot experience it, which is why only when that filtration process is completely removed are you then merging with the deity, like Mirabai.
Yes.
And this is basically how we are different from others, and this is something that we have to understand.
I just want to add something, like you're just saying that the idol has got its own independent existence, chaitanyam. Supreme Court, in fact, for the Sabrimala as well as in the Ayodhya case, judges, I think, I mean the lawyers, especially Parasharan, he said for Sabrimala, the deity there has got, is an individual with its own right. That was accepted by Supreme Court. The first time this is happening. So it has got its own existence. So you cannot have the rights of the god, the idol there has an individual right, fundamental right. That's one part. The second part is we are just talking about more pujas being conducted and in some places and not. For example, if you think of Tirupati, Guruvayur, Sabarimala and all that, because we have heard people saying that it's a very powerful deities. Powerful deities, I think it's because more people are going there, more pujas are being conducted. So it's actually self-driven. If in a neighborhood thing, no one goes there, no one does any puja, things are very dull. So that doesn't have as much chaitanya as in a place where more and more people are offering there. Is it right?
I would like to differ a little bit here, sir.
Yeah.
I think what happens is that in larger temples, because of the number of people who get benefited by the chaitanyam of the deity, there is more understanding. Just as a small example, I used to live in a society in Mumbai where we set up a Ganpati temple, and we used to do Dvikala, 2 kalas, we used to do puja for the deity, and it was very religiously done. There have been instances of people coming and wishing for children, wishing for their problems to be solved, problems getting solved. So, what I'm trying to say is that it is not really dependent on the size of the temple. The size of the temple, the more number of people get their chaitanyam to a different state. However, even smaller temples where lesser number of people go, provided the temple is managed properly and those that manage the temple are doing a decent job, the effects or the impacts are the same. This is my humble submission.
Definitely. What I'm saying is, for example, in my own neighborhood, there's a Krishna temple. The deity there and the temple there is as beautiful as Guruvayur. But Guruvayur, you have lakhs of people. Here, you don't even have 10 people. If more people come, there'll be more chaitanya. Am I right?
The deity is called Pratibha. Pratibha means it is a reflection of the deity. So it is like an equity. It is like any stock market. What you put in, you will get out. Some of these are very, very powerful deities. Like for example, Tiruvannamalai, the Shiva is there is at a very different level altogether. We can't have everybody as CEO of LIC. Somebody will become CEO of LIC. There is only one Narendra Modi. Everybody is different in a different manner. In my view, just like we have individuals, we have deities. Some of these deities have an enormous power of chaitanyam. Some of them have lower power of chaitanyam. But all of them give to the worshipper what the worshipper puts into it.
Yeah, that's what it is. Like something like a positive feedback system. It goes on increasing. It'll go on.
What you invest, you will get as returns.
Yeah, more people invest, it become bigger and bigger. And once it becomes bigger, more people are interested to go there. So it all increases in leaps and bounds. If no one goes there, no one, that temples, and that's why we have so many hundreds, lakhs of temples where there's hardly any money, there's hardly anyone to do any puja. Even lighting a lamp is difficult in many, many places we see it.
May I also suggest another thing? You told me that opposite Guruvayur there is a Shiva temple. Shiva temple used to be very, very famous.
Yes.
And all of a sudden that has gone down and Guruvayur
Yeah,
has
that
come up.
has happened. That is history, yes.
But that means even the deity has prarabdha-karma. Shiva Krishna had prarabdha-karma. Rama had prarabdha-karma. Every one of them, because they are a Purusha, they have prarabdha-karma. They have to go through the cycle of ups and downs. Some of these temples will go down, some of these temples will do better.
No, the chaitanyam, when we talk about, even at the beginning, when the temple is being built and the consecration happens and all that, even in the US, because I was quite involved in the Guruvayur temple, which was built there. So Sringeri Matam was supporting. So the yantra is prepared, and the Acharya from Sringeri, they have a full mandalam during which they do all mantram and jabikal. They do a lot of chanting and strengthening that yantram. And then the yantram goes, when they put the garbhagraha, different levels are there. We all give gold one place, and then the yantram is kept right below. And then before that, the idol is fixed. The idol also goes through certain jaladivasam and then dhanyavasam and all that, for a certain number of days, certain number of period. So initially it is given a lot of chaitanya by all these things. And then you have to regularly you worship, and then pujas happen. And then also every 12 years they have this re-strengthening the power of the vigrahas. One more minute. When I used to grow up, we were living in Bombay, if anybody knows Bombay. There was a small Krishna temple there. All of us used to go every day in the morning, small one, very small. Yes. As children, we used to go, even elders. It was a beautiful temple. It had a lot of chaitanya, a lot of power, examination. Everybody used to go there and go. I'm just saying, temple, small, big, it doesn't matter really. Because of the location, less people may visit. Sometimes they become popular because of the legends around it. There is a Salapuranam for Guruvayur, Tirupati, Sabarimala, and all that. So naturally, they will have more strength, obviously.
I'm glad that you brought up one thing, because I had completely forgotten about the kumbabhishekam part. Just as an individual goes through 12-year cycle of regeneration, we're supposed to have a generational change every 12 years. The temple also has a regeneration cycle of 12 years where the temple is rebuilt. So this is also answering one of the points about the temple being made out of stone to last long. Actually, temples are meant to be regenerated every 12 years, which is why they retain that pristine condition that we see them in. So the temple is supposed to be a prasada, that is a castle. It is supposed to be the most imposing structure in the vicinity, the location. So when you go there, your entire consciousness is supposed to be uplifted. You feel that you're going into the presence of something that is beyond you or bigger than you. So when you go in, you completely change the way you cognitively think of yourself, and then you go into the Mahamandapam, and when you see the deity, you are willing to submit your cognition into the chaitanyam of the deity. That is basically the intent, that you are supposed to submit. That is why it is called Sharanagati. Bhakti Yoga is based on Sharanagati. So you are supposed to get into a state where you are saying, I am surrendering. There is no question of you submitting. You are surrendering your identity. But it doesn't happen overnight. It is a kind of a refinement process, which is why it is called Pakvam or Pakvata, where we actually refine ourselves from where we are in a current state to a point where slowly we remove those filters and try to merge with the Brahman.
Regarding installation of Guruvayurappan in Guruvayur, it was probably with the blessings of Lord Shiva and all of them that temple was installed. So now over a period of time, as you said, Guruvayur has become famous and all that. In that process, even Mammiyur is very, very crowded because of Guruvayur. Because it is said that after visiting Guruvayur, you have to make a visit to Mammiyur.
Correct. But the limited point is that all temples have a life cycle. There is a birth, there is a growth, there is a decline. So they have a brahmacharya ashrama, there is a grihastha ashrama, there's a vanaprastha ashrama, there's a sannyasa ashrama. Even the temples go through that cycle of birth, growth, decline, and death. And that is why in 12 years you have to make sure that you renew the temple. But also we have to recognize that this renewal of the temple by itself is not enough. The temples are subjected to destruction as individuals by people who don't have the same kind of thought process. So it is important that people protect those temples and all of those paraphernalia that is there. But the temple by itself is a Purusha. It is an identity. It has its own chaitanyam, and that chaitanyam reflects on us. This is the limited point that I'm trying to make. Okay, I'm going to the last section. So there are 6 major schools of worship. It's called shan-matha-bodham. So we have Shaivam, Shaktyam, Vaishnavam, Shauryam, Ganapatyam, and Kaumaram. And also each of these have got different subsections. For example, in Shaivam, we have got the Panchabhuta Lingam, that is, fire is in Tiruvannamalai, water is in Tiruvanekavil, and things like that. In Shaktyam, you have the 53 Shakti Stalas. And then Vaishnavism, we have multiple temples of Vishnu. We have Shauryam. Now, interesting thing is, generally, Surya by itself or himself does not exist as a temple, other than maybe a handful of temples like Surinar Koil or the various temples in Odisha and other places. Whenever a Surya temple exists, it exists in combination with Shiva. Now, there is a reason for this. Shiva is the identity, the individual. And the individual is always impacted by the planets. And these planets, we exist because of the sun, and the various navagrahas have a gravitational impact on us. And this gravitational impact is determined by the Jyotisha or the horoscope that we have. This is exemplified in the Navagraha Stalas that we have, and all Navagraha Stalas must have a Shiva temple which represents the individual soul. Now, let me give you an example. When Rama was building the Setu, they started construction and the sea kept washing it away. So, what happened was that somebody told him, you go and ask Devi to help you, because near the place where the Setu is a temple called Ulaganayagi Amman Koil. So what happened is that Devi, after she defeated Mahishasur, she was in a great state of tejas. Nobody could see her. So everybody said, Mother, we are unable to see you, so you need to grant us the ability to see you. So she said that I will go and take samadhi in a particular place, and you all can come and pay obeisance to me. And this place where she has taken samadhi is called Devi Pattinam, and the Amman or the Devi, the Shakti, is called Ulaganayagi Amman. So somebody told Rama, you go and ask Mother what has to be done. So he went and asked her, and she said, you put Navagrahas in the sea, and that should calm the sea down. So this place, which is called Devi Pattinam, he installed the Navagrahas in the sea, and it is the only place on earth where Navagrahas are kept in the sea. And opposite that Navagraha Kshetra is a big temple for Shri Rama. But since he could not do the Navagrahas in the sea by itself, he has gone, and about a kilometer away, he set up a Shiva temple. Now, since it was the sea coast and he couldn't find a rock, he made the lingam out of till branches. And so the deity there is called Tilakeshwarar. But what I'm trying to say here is that you cannot have worship of the Navagrahas without Shiva. You have to have Shiva, who is the identity of the individual, for worshipping of the Navagrahas. Then you have Ganapatyam and Kaumaram. Ganapatyam and Kaumaram are generally subordinate worshipping styles. Main styles are all Shaivam, Shaktyam, and Vaishnavam. Since we have the deity as a Purusha, an individual, what happens to the deity on a daily basis? So around 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. they have what is called a Go Puja. The Go Puja is done to the hind section of the cow, the back section of the cow, which is the creation of the universe. Nobody does puja to the head of the cow. It is done to the hind side of the cow. That puja is done because it is where the uterus is. So the Go Puja is done to the cow, and then the temple is opened. The first thing that happens is the Usha Kalam, where the Utsava Vigraha, that is the one that is the Chalam Vigraha, is taken out of the Shayanalaya or the bed chamber. And from there, using Vadya, it is taken to the Garbhagraha. And the prana from the Utsava Vigraha is given to the Mula Vigraha. The deity is awakened with a Vishekam or a bath, and the prana moves from the Utsava Vigraha to the Mula Vigraha. Obviously, the deity is offered some breakfast or Naivedyam. Thereafter, there is Kala Sandhi, where people come for this particular puja. The Abhishekam or the Pancha Snanam is done, and the Naivedyam is offered to the deity and to those that come. Many temples do not do this, but generally you do a Uchakalam. See, we must recognize one thing, that Sandhi means where the sun goes from dusk to dawn, from pre-noon to post-noon or afternoon, and then it goes from dusk to night. These are called Sandhis, and the pujas are done during Sandhi time. So this is called Uchakalam, that is where you go from pre-noon to afternoon. And when the sun is overhead, Abhishekam is done, and then the Garbhagraha is closed, because obviously after blessing so many, the deity is also expected to be tired. So the deity gets a chance to rest. Sayam Kalam, which is between 5 and 6 p.m., the Garbhagraha is opened and the deity is prepared for visitation. Then this is also another this is not done in every temple. It's called Rendangalam. And this is around 7 p.m. The deity is offered Naivedyam for dinner. And Ardha Jaman is after Naivedyam. The deity's prana is moved from the Mula Vigraha to the Utsava Vigraha and taken to the Shayanalayam. This is the sample routine of a fairly large sized temple in Tamil Nadu. Now, what are the primary roles of a temple? So, first you have the pujari, or the person who looks after the deity, who does the worship of the deity, takes the details of the puja and conveys the requirements of the puja to the deity, conducts all the ablutions of the deity such as Suprabhadam, Abhishekam, Alankaram, Naivedyam, Archana, and other things. He maintains the deity in the way it has to be maintained in a formal manner, and that Pujari's Shraddha will determine the chaitanyam of the deity. It's very important that we understand how the deity is looked after matters. Which is why when a pujari is unhappy or ill or not in a position to do, or he's not conscious or cognitively competent, then that will impact the quality of the deity's chaitanyam also, and by virtue of that it will impact the pujak and it will impact the purusha of the temple also. So the temple will start dying because of that. It is a very symbiotic relationship between all of the people who are involved in the temple, the temple's own cognitive state, the worshipper's cognitive state, and how the temple begins to reflect itself in the environment. The priest has two attendants. The physical attendant, the person who brings in the milk and the oil and the puja saman, and he brings it to the Ardha Mandapam. Only the priest is authorized to look after the deity. In the north, the worshippers are also allowed to touch the deity. But the actual puja of the deity is done only by the pujari, with the person who is authorized to do this puja. There is a second assistant or the Alankara assistant who removes the old flowers and then the clothes and things like that, and then brings all the material for the puja to the pujari. So there are two assistants to the priest. There is also a temple musician, a folk musician. The difference between them is the classical music is played by the temple musician, whereas the folk musician talks about what happens from a local level. So while the Vedic method of playing the Nadaswaram and things like that are done by classical musicians, this particular folk person will take the local language and talk to the deity in the local language or sing in the local language. In Tamil Nadu, he is called a Oduvar, and he will recite things from Sangam literature to the deity. Hitherto, there was a person called a Devadasi. The logic here was the temple being a Purusha and being treated like a Purusha with morning, afternoon, evening, bathing and foods and this and that. And because our Purushartha requires Artha, Kama, Dharma, Moksha, the Kama part had to be satisfied, and this was by a female. And this female was called a Devadasi. Now, over time, this concept got very badly vitiated and is now a dead aspect. So there are secondary roles to a temple, and that is we have the footwear collection. You are not allowed to go inside a temple with footwear because of shaucham requirements. Then there is a puja samagri. Anybody who wants to go into a temple to make an offering to the deity will buy various fruits, flowers, coconuts, incense, and things like that. There is the hundi where the pujak deposits money. And then there is the Annadana Sala where after you do the perambulation, you go and take your prasada. When you do the kumbabhishekam, making sure that the temple is structurally sound and that the way it is made is architecturally correct. This is done by a person called Stapati. Then Prasan Vedak is one who does the maintenance of the temple, who repairs and things like that, and maintains it according to the same rules of Shilpa Shastra. Then you have the Shilpin, the carver. Because of continuous Abhishekam, idols start wearing out. And so you need to change the idols. During Kumbha Abhishekam, very often, some of these idols are changed. And of course, we have the temple officer, Karyalayam. Okay, here we are going to get into the cognitive aspect and answer the question why the temple is the cognitive center of Bharat. So from here to the end, it will be all about cognition, our cognition, the deity's cognition, the relationship between the two of us. Answer the question as to what the temple means to Bharat. Here, the first thing is that when you enter a temple, you're supposed to have a certain level of shaucham. The basic logic is that when you touch somebody, automatically your aura will start reflecting on that. So if you're at a higher level of chaitanyam, your aura will go to a person with a low level of chaitanyam. So we are not supposed to touch each other. At Balipeedam, you are supposed to let go your asmita. And along with that, you're also supposed to leave the Ashtadhargas, like Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, before you enter. So basically, you're supposed to take out the I at the Balipeedam and go. And because we do that at the Balipeedam, there is a offering made to that identity which has been dropped there, which will need assuaging. This particular Bali that is given there is not offered to anybody else, it is discarded. So in our system, even the thing that is discarded has an identity, and that identity will have a hunger. And the Bali that is given to that will thereafter get assuaged and die. And that is basically the concept that even if you drop something, if you dump something that has an identity, and that identity has then got to be properly extinguished. The Devalayam has a kosha. The whole place is the Annamaya kosha of a temple. The movement of cognition in the form of the worshipper, the puja, the naivedya, all the physical activity is the generation of prana, which then generates the chaitanya. And this is called pranamaya kosha. The identity of the deity, the identity of the worshipper, the relationship between the two is the manomaya kosha. The cognitive aspect of the deity reflected on the worshipper and the worshipper's cognitive element being reflected on the deity. These two are the manomaya kosha. Throughout, whatever we are doing, the cognitive aspect is the Vijnanamaya Kosha, because we go in with some kind of Vijnana or Jnana and we come out at a different level. And that is the Vijnanamaya Kosha. And obviously, the Brahman, which is the Garbhagraha, is the Anandamaya Kosha. Now, the prana of a Devalayam, prana always moves as a stream or a Vayu. So, whatever comes in the form of resources, in the form of people, in the form of prayers, in the form of puja samagri or annadana material, all of that is called pranavayu. What we drop off at the Balipeedam is the apanavayu, which is why it is at the Mooladhara. This apanavayu is the excretory aspect of the temple where you dump all your negativity and then you go into the temple. The Devalayam is a physical entity. It has a certain aura, a chaitanyam, and that is the Vyana Vayu. And that is why certain temples will have a certain aura around it. In fact, even as somebody was saying, when you go into a particular room where there is a shrine, when you go there, you will feel a certain energy coming out of that shrine depending on how the people in the house have prayed to that particular deity or the shrine that is there in the house. And then the way the Devalayam interacts with its environment. We were talking about Guruvayur. There is a Shiva temple and there is a Guruvayurappan temple. Each of these relates to its laity in a different manner. Even though they are within 2 or 3 kilometers of each other, each of them has got a way in which it projects itself into the environment. And this is the Udana Vayu aspect of the Devalayam. All the movements, the physical movement of food, of people, of various other materials within the temple is the Samana Vayu that you have within a Devalayam. Lastly, what happens is that the temple itself has a Panchabhuta aspect also, which means that we have the earth, water, fire, space, and air movements or cognition of all of this in a temple. And that comes from various aspects, such as the sight comes from Aarti, the Rangoli, and things like that. The smell again comes from that as well as the Aarti. The sound comes from the various prayers, and then we have taste, which is the prasada. If you will see one thing, the cognitive aspect is designed to increase sattva or sattvic elements within us, which is the fascinating aspect of the Devalayam. The Devalayam is meant for us to remove our rajasic and tamasic aspects, throw it at the Balipeedam, and go inside, increase the sattvic content of our chaitanyam, of our chitta, and then come out in a manner which is in harmony with ourselves, with our environment, with our current state, with our prajna. So this is why the Devalayam is the center of the identity of Bharat civilization, as well as people, societies, villages, towns, and philosophical institutions. Everything is centered around the Devalayam. And this is why Devalayams must be kept independent of all control. Each Devalayam has to be itself so that it is able to live like a Purusha, grow like a Purusha, and its resurgence and improvements happens in a natural cycle rather than being controlled by somebody else. Are there any questions?
So, one question. So, the prahara that you mentioned, and when we go and see the prahara, in most of the temples, we see that's a closed one. Like, for example, if I mention Rameshwaram, the outer prahara is closed. Like there is on the top of it, it is closed. But in most of other temples, like in Karnataka, if we visit the temples,
Be open.
It is open. Yeah.
Correct.
Is there any particular reason for it? Like
the logic of the prahara is two things. One is all the Koshta Vigrahas. The Koshta Vigrahas are allied Vigrahas of the main deity.
Okay.
The Koshta Vigrahas will be on the three sides. Yeah. You enter from the eastern side, on the western, southern, and northern side. There will be these Koshta Vigrahas. They will also have all the drawings of the deities in various forms. Now, the praharas, you will have two types. One is the inside prahara and the outside prahara. The prahara on the inside will be far more embellished than the outside prahara. The inside prahara will not have any other mantapas. Whereas the outside prahara, depending on the temple, like for instance, Rameshwaram has got a corridor. The number of vigrahas you have on the outer corridors are very few. You will have only one or two small shrines for certain deities. However, if you go to a place like Tiruvannaikkaval, which is the Shiva temple in Srirangam near Trichy, what you will see is that there will be multiple mandapas. There will be a Natya Mandapa, Nritya Mandapa, Nataraja Mandapa, all of these. Those are places where there will be structured programs. Now, if you'll notice in Rameshwaram, in the temple, there are no structured programs for dancing and for music and for upanyasa and things like that.
Yeah.
Because those mandapas don't exist.
Okay.
Each of these temples is constructed in a different manner, depending on the area, the money that they were able to generate when they were built.
Okay.
In Rameshwaram has got two Shivas. One was kept by Shri Rama and one was kept by Hanuman. Other than that, there is not much.
Yeah.
There is an internal corridor which has been created. That is because of the 13 ponds which you go for a bath. Now, that is a totally different Purusha as compared with the other temples that you will see. In fact, if you go to Halebid, Belur and all that, you will see a completely different structure.
Different, yes.
So, each of these temple is a Purusha. It is an individual. Like my physical structure is different from Sir's, right? So each of us is built differently. Each of us thinks differently. Each of us is a different Purusha. Similarly, those deities are also different. Even though Rameshwaram is a Shiva and Tiruvanekavil is a Shiva and Tiruvannamalai is a Shiva,
Yeah.
they are all different. Each of them is different.
Yeah.
In fact, in Tiruvannamalai, the mountain itself is part of the Lingam.
Yeah.
So here there is no one God. There are as many gods as there are thoughts. You can imagine if the Balipeedam itself is going to have an identity. You are going to dump your identity there, and somebody is going to offer a bali to that identity, which is no longer yours. You have dumped it. It's not yours anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
And somebody is offering bali to it so that it dies. So that you don't take it back when you get out.
Correct. Yeah.
You are going out from the same place, right? The Balipeedam is there. You are going out from the same place. The intent is that it will die. Somebody will give it bali. You will not eat it again. You will not take it back with you. So you are supposed to regenerate your consciousness when you get inside and then go out with a more sattvic outlook of life, and if possible merge with the
Brahman.
deity, with the Brahman.
Yeah.
Have I answered your question?
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Because this kind of structure we also see in Sri Kalahasti, and also the other day we were visiting Ekambareshwar in Kanchipuram. So we saw the same structure there also, that it's closed. And when you're just walking along the corridor, so you get to see other temples, like you mentioned. There were Kal Bhairava, there was Mata, of course. So you see a lot of other temples. But we visit in other temples, like in Karnataka, mostly when we see, it's an open thing. You're just coming out, and then the prahara is an open thing. Like you get to see the mandapas, you get to see those. Yeah.
Actually, what happens even in Karnataka, there is an inner prahara and there is an outer prahara. Some of these temples have an inner prahara where you just do circumambulation of the temple. For example, if you go to
Kavalishwarar Koil, if you take, sir.
So there, if you go, there is a small inner prahara. There is a large outer prahara.
Okay.
The large outer prahara will have all the paraphernalia. And sometimes the two of them are together. So the inner prahara, there will be a covering, and the outer prahara, there may be no covering.
No covering, yeah.
Even in Karnataka, you will find, for instance, if you go to Sri Rangapatna,
Ranganatha Swami.
There you will find that the inner courtyard is closed.
There it is. It's small. Yeah.
These are the nuances, but essentially it means that the Purusha is in a particular manner. Like for instance, somebody will have lots of muscles, somebody will have no muscles. Somebody will wear a t-shirt, somebody will wear a kurta. That particular Lord is wearing a kurta, that's it.
Yeah, okay.
The gap between us, our cognition, and the cognition of the deity must go.
Yeah.
The filters that we keep because of Maya have to be removed, and you have to merge with the deity. All of the thing that happens around the deity is essentially meant
Maya.
to reduce and remove each filter so that you then stop thinking about the I, the ahankara. I am the doer. I have come to the temple. I'm going to be a great guy. No, you're supposed to lose it. You're not supposed to keep it. And that is the basic intent of the Devalayam, which is why that Devalayam acts as a cleanser. It is the cleaning tool that Bharat has to remove all the internal kachada that we have.
Detoxification.
Absolutely, detoxing. It is the center of detoxing.
Yeah.
We are supposed to go there to detox, to clean our consciousness and come out and become better people for ourselves, for society, for everybody, for humanity.
Yeah.
About the Thalapuranams, like there are temples where we have these unique things where we have no explanation for it. For example, there is this temple which came into my mind, which I have visited many times. This is a temple called Mangalagiri in Andhra Pradesh. Narasimha Swami is worshipped there, top of a hill. You know what is very unique about this temple? There is no separate vigraham. The god is kept his mouth open inside the stone, and the priest pours jaggery water into it, panakam. So he is called Panaka Swami. Basically, they pour panakam into the mouth. Where the panakam goes, we do not know. But the surprising factor is, once they pour the panakam, they put the vessel near the mouth of the Lord, half of the quantity you have poured comes back into the vessel again. It's like God is giving it out again.
Prasadam.
As prasadam. And another very, remarkable feature there is, if you pour one pot of panagam, they have these vendadals, sir. Some people will pour one pot, some will just pour a small glass quantity. Even if you pour just one glass, half the glass is returned by the Lord. And nobody knows how that happens. Jaggery is pounded there day in and day out outside the temple in one particular area. You will not find a single ant. You will not find a single ant. So that temple is built that way. I was just thinking, on top of a hillock.
Can you do some more research and write an article on this? It would be a very nice thing.
Sure, sir.
Ramayana is written by Kambar and Valmiki.
Yes, sir.
So I said there is a third one which we do not recognize well enough. And that is the actual temples which exist along the path of Ramayana. What these temples are actually the local people's interaction with Rama and what they experienced when Rama came and went.
Oh, okay.
So these are actual evidences of the local people interacting with Sri Rama and having a relationship with him.
Yes, sir.
So while Kambar Ramayana and Valmiki Ramayana have a place, there is a very important aspect which we do not recognize, and that is in the temples which actually talk about what happened when Sri Rama came.
This is proof that Rama walked on this earth. So when people talk about mythology and say this is like some imaginary character, no, these are all where we can actually prove that God in his kindness came in the form of Rama. It's only faith which is working. For a tourist, for example, Ananta Padmanabha Swami temple, he might look at it for the architecture, for the beauty of that temple, the way it is built. But for a person with faith, when he looks at each vigraham, it tells a story, isn't it? Somewhere, some temples tell us a story.
I completely agree with what you're saying. Each of us, whatever we put in, we get out. Our state of cognitive existence, that prarabdha-karma that we have brought and that karma that we carry is what we are going into the temple and experiencing. As simple as that.
It's like a mirror, you are saying, sir.
Absolutely. That's all. That is why it is a pratibha. Correct.
What I take in is what I get. Oh, yes, sir.
If you are not going to dump your Ashtadvargas at the Balipeedam,
yes, sir,
no matter how much you go and how many aartis you see, you will not see. See, let us look at the aarti also. What is the aarti? When a light is placed in front of the Devi, when you see the Devi without the light, you see something. Why is the aarti given? So that you can see the nuances of the vigraha. Why? Because the truth is always different from the narrative.
Yes, sir.
What you go in is with a particular impression of the deity.
Yes, sir.
What you then see after Aarti is you are supposed to see it and understand that the truth that you are seeing is different from what you have seen before. The truth means you have to break down all the barriers. You have to put light, prakasha, on all the hidden corners of your own self, your own consciousness, your own weaknesses. You are going to dump all of them every time you come into the temple. And only then will you be able to break the filters that separate you from the deity. That is why the Aarti is there. That is to remind us that we don't understand everything. And to understand the truth, we have to put Prakasha at every crevice that exists. And that dark corner which does not allow us to see ourselves properly.
It was so nice of you to explain all these things. So when we go into a temple next time, we do our homework, understand, prepare, plan, and then enter and ensure that, we have moved to a higher energy level maybe and enjoy the process. That is one thing. And I also really like the way you put across the journey of Rama and the participation by people around. When Ayodhya temple was installed, the news channels were relaying so many temples where Rama's journey was shown. A temple in Kerala, I believe that was where Sita went into the earth, but nobody knows. No one knows about it. One more thing is you should go to a temple which is called Mookuttala temple in Angadipuram, Malappuram district. Tirupad, after composing Narayanyam, he became very famous and he was just very happy about himself. At that time, I believe one night he got a dream from one supernatural power saying that you go to this temple. And he didn't believe, and he just, because he was told to, he went, I believe. And there he got instruction to do dhyana. He did dhyana for 12 years and he got salvation. So what I understood was, after all this bhakti marga, it is our duty to sit, tapatape, and as you said,
Yes.
do it instead of giving gyan or listening to gyan. Just do it, like how we have that.
No, this is a message for me also. I think we've all understood the basic thing is that the temple is a cognitive state. It is a Purusha. It is an entity. Each of these temples, by virtue of the construction, the date, have certain chaitanyam. Those chaitanyams are all related to that temple, and that chaitanyam reflects in the grama that exists around it, because the people go and keep on worshipping that particular deity in that particular manner. Then this particular chaitanyam is the anchor of our civilization, because from that chaitanyam comes the chaitanyam of the grama, from that comes the chaitanyam of the desha, and so the temple itself is something that we need to understand as not just a physical structure or a psychological structure or a psychosomatic structure, but as a Purusha, an identity which has its own prana. And this is something that I wanted to place before you all.
All said and done, I think we don't have to wait to go to large temples. I would always say go to your neighborhood temples. Don't give lakhs of rupees to big temples which are controlled by governments. Even if you give 5 rupees, please give it to a neighborhood temple and then let the Karpuram build it every day. That's what
And not only that, please give the money to the temple priests.
temple priests.
And if possible, to a patashala where the priests are taught. Another thing is that the side people who are learning how to sing to the deity in the local language, that is something that is getting lost. So we need to support that as well.
There are people who actually sing out these folk songs even to the deity.
We need to preserve it. We need to make sure that more people sing in
Yeah.
local languages.
Yeah. So, sir, everything comes out if we are being able to create a livelihood, because that's what
Exactly.
matters. So those people, even in the rural areas, they are in search of basic things like food and where to stay, what to wear.
Exactly. We need young people to protect our temples, the Devalayams. Yoga is the movement of the cognition from turbulence to stillness, from cacophony to silence, from the sense of doership or ahankara to inertness or bhasma. Thank you for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe. For more information, do visit my website www.schoolofyoga.in.